My cousin made my wedding about her future kid, so I made her wedding about everyone's future marriages. At my cousin Whitney's garden wedding in Charleston, she grabbed the microphone during the father of the bride's speech to announce she was starting her own business. During our cousin Brandon's cake cutting, she loudly informed everyone at our table that she'd just gotten promoted to senior manager. At my best friend Jennifer's reception, she literally climbed onto the band's stage during the couple's first dance to reveal she was buying a house in the suburbs. That should have been my warning. That moment of chaos at Jennifer's reception was nothing compared to what awaited me 4 months later at my own wedding. I'm Tessa, and I thought I knew my cousin well enough to prepare for her antics. Boy, was I wrong. The day started perfectly. Our venue at Magnolia Estate looked like something out of a Southern Living magazine, with Edison bulbs strung between magnolia trees and ivory peonies everywhere. My bridesmaids looked stunning in their dusty rose dresses, and my fiancé Cameron looked so handsome waiting for me at the altar that I nearly cried right there. The ceremony went off without a hitch. Whitney sat quietly in the 4th row, her boyfriend Troy beside her, both smiling and seemingly well-behaved. I actually thought maybe she'd finally learned some boundaries. Maybe her new relationship had changed her priorities. How naive I was. Everything was still going perfectly as we moved to the reception. The cocktail hour was magical, guests mingling on the veranda, the string quartet playing softly, everyone complimenting the crab cakes and bacon-wrapped dates. Cameron and I were glowing, floating from table to table, accepting congratulations and feeling like the luckiest people alive. Dinner service began flawlessly. The wedding planner had everything timed perfectly. The pan-seared filet mignon was a hit, the butternut squash ravioli received rave reviews, and even my picky Uncle Gerald was praising the truffle mashed potatoes. Then came time for the speeches. My maid of honor, Stephanie, had spent weeks crafting the perfect toast. She stood up, champagne flute in hand, and began sharing beautiful memories of our friendship since high school. The room was captivated. People were getting teary-eyed, and I felt so loved. Stephanie was halfway through her speech when Whitney suddenly stood up. She clinked her wine glass dramatically, that sharp, demanding sound that cuts through any conversation. Every head turned toward her as she walked confidently to the front of the room. My heart sank. Here we go again. Sorry, but I have something important to share while everyone's here, Whitney announced, reaching for the microphone. Stephanie stood there, frozen, still holding her speech cards. The room fell silent except for the soft clinking of confused guests setting down their forks. Cameron grabbed my hand under the table, and I could feel his tension matching mine. Whitney pulled Troy up beside her, both of them beaming like they'd just won the lottery. We wanted to tell our family the most incredible news, Whitney continued, her voice carrying that theatrical quality she used whenever she wanted maximum attention. My stomach dropped. Please don't be pregnant, I thought. Not at my wedding. Troy and I have been working with a foster-to-adopt agency, she announced, pausing for dramatic effect. And we've been matched with a 3-year-old boy in Tennessee. We're bringing home our son in just 6 weeks. The room erupted. Confused congratulations mixed with surprised gasps as guests tried to process this announcement at someone else's wedding reception. Great Aunt Dorothy started crying happy tears. Uncle Gerald raised his wine glass in an impromptu toast. My photographer, bless his heart, looked at me questioningly, clearly unsure whether to document this moment. Stephanie still stood there holding her speech, looking like she'd been slapped. The beautiful words she'd prepared about friendship and love seemed suddenly irrelevant as everyone's attention shifted completely to Whitney and Troy. We're so excited to finally become parents, Whitney gushed, soaking up every moment of attention. His name is Connor, and he loves dinosaurs and building blocks. We're already setting up his bedroom with a Jurassic Park theme. Troy nodded enthusiastically, clearly caught up in the moment. We've been keeping it secret for months, but we couldn't wait any longer to share with family. The next hour became the Whitney and Troy show. Guests kept approaching their table with questions about the foster process, advice about parenting a preschooler, and congratulations that should have been directed at Cameron and me. Someone, I still don't know who, actually started passing around an envelope for cash donations toward bedroom furniture, using our card box as a collection point. My photographer spent 20 minutes doing an impromptu photo session with them, capturing their announcement moment while Cameron and I sat at our sweetheart table, watching our reception dissolve into someone else's celebration. I excused myself to the bathroom, where I finally let the tears fall. This was supposed to be our day, our moment, our celebration of love and commitment. And once again, Whitney had made it about herself. That's where my mother found me, dabbing concealer under my eyes. "Tessa, honey, you're being dramatic," Mom said, closing the bathroom door behind her. "Whitney's just excited about becoming a mother. You should be happy for family." I stared at her reflection in the ornate mirror, mascara wand frozen halfway to my lashes. "Mom." She literally took the microphone away from Stephanie during her speech at my wedding reception. "She's been waiting years for this placement, sweetie. This foster adoption is like a miracle for her and Troy. Can't you just be supportive?" Before I could respond, my Aunt Carol burst through the door, all smiles and dramatic gestures. "There you are. Isn't this just the most wonderful news?" Whitney was practically glowing out there. "It's my wedding day, Aunt Carol." "Oh honey, there's plenty of celebration to go around. Besides, now you'll have a new little cousin to spoil. Think of how special it is that she chose to share this moment with the whole family at once." I felt like I was taking crazy pills. Were they seriously defending this behavior? Did they not see how completely inappropriate it was to make a major life announcement at someone else's wedding? "She does this at every family event," I said quietly. "Whitney's wedding, Brandon's wedding, Jennifer's reception. She always has to be the center of attention." Mom waved her hand dismissively. "You're overthinking it. Whitney just gets enthusiastic about good news. There's nothing wrong with sharing joy." During someone else's maid of honor speech, Aunt Carol laughed. "Stephanie will have other opportunities to give speeches, but how often does someone announce they're becoming parents through foster adoption? This is once-in-a-lifetime stuff." I gave up trying to explain and returned to the reception, where the remainder of the evening continued to revolve around Whitney's big news. Our first dance felt overshadowed. The cake cutting was interrupted by more adoption questions, and even our sparkler send-off included guests asking Whitney about Connor's transition plan. Cameron and I collapsed in our hotel suite that night, both emotionally drained. "I can't believe she did that," he said, loosening his bow tie. "And I really can't believe your family thinks it was okay." "That's just Whitney," I sighed. "She's always been like this. And somehow everyone just accepts it as normal." 6 weeks later, we were all gathered for Sunday brunch at my parents' house when Whitney made her next announcement. She'd set a wedding date. This time, I was ready to listen very carefully. "We've booked the Crystal Ballroom at the Ritz-Carlton for March 23rd, Whitney announced over my mother's famous French toast casserole, her eyes sparkling with the same excitement she'd shown at my reception. She pulled out her phone and started swiping through Pinterest boards, showing everyone her elaborate plans. "I'm going for an enchanted garden theme. Think A Midsummer Night's Dream meets fairy tale romance. Cascading florals, candlelight everywhere, ethereal details from floor to ceiling." Troy sat beside her, nodding along as she described the 5-course plated dinner, the live chamber orchestra, and the custom floral chandelier installation. "We've already hired a wedding designer who specializes in luxury events," she continued. "This is going to be absolutely magical." "How exciting." Mom gushed. "It sounds like it'll be the wedding of the year." Whitney beamed. "I want everything to be absolutely perfect. No interruptions, no distractions, just all eyes on Troy and me for once. We deserve to have our moment be completely about us." I nearly choked on my mimosa. The irony was so thick you could cut it with a knife. Here was the woman who had hijacked 3 family weddings and my best friend's reception, talking about deserving her uninterrupted moment. "That sounds lovely, Whitney," I managed to say, forcing a smile. "I'm sure it'll be beautiful." "Thank you, Tessa. I knew you'd understand how important this is. After everything we've been through with the foster process and now planning this wedding, we really want our day to be just about celebrating our love and our growing family." The adoption had gone through smoothly, and little Connor was now settling into his new home beautifully. Whitney had transformed into a devoted mother, constantly sharing photos and stories about Connor's every milestone, which was lovely, except it had also amplified her need for attention and validation. "We're even having Connor in the ceremony," she continued. "Troy's brother will walk him down the aisle as our ring bearer. I want him to feel included in our special moment." After brunch, as I helped Mom clear the dishes, an idea began forming in my mind. Whitney's fatal flaw had always been her complete blindness to her own behavior. She genuinely believed she was just sharing joy and couldn't understand why anyone would mind her grabbing attention at their events. She also had zero ability to handle competition for attention, as I'd witnessed countless times over the years. That night, lying in bed next to Cameron, I started planning. If Whitney wanted her wedding to be absolutely perfect with no interruptions, well, I had some friends who might disagree with that plan. "You're getting that look," Cameron said, glancing up from his tablet. "The same look you had when you decided to reorganize our entire garage in one afternoon." "What look?" "The look that means you're plotting something elaborate and probably slightly crazy." I smiled innocently. "I have no idea what you're talking about." But he was right. I was absolutely plotting something. I reached out to my college drama friends first. My old roommate Olivia ran an improv troupe in Atlanta that specialized in flash mobs and guerrilla theater performances. When I called her and explained my situation, she literally cackled with delight. "Oh my God, Tessa, this is perfect. Do you remember that wedding scene we improvised in advanced performance? The one where everyone kept making announcements during the reception." "That's exactly what made me think of you," I laughed. "Do you think your troupe would be interested in a little performance art?" "Are you kidding? We live for this kind of thing. How many performers do you need?" Within a week, Olivia had assembled 14 of her best improvisational actors, all committed to the cause. The tricky part would be getting them into the wedding without raising suspicion. I spent the next evening studying Whitney's guest list, which she'd conveniently left at Mom's house during Connor's welcome home party. Several couples had generic +1 RSVPs, meaning some single guests could bring dates. I started reaching out to family friends and distant cousins who were attending solo. "Hey, remember my cousin Whitney? The one who announced her foster adoption at my wedding reception? Well, she's getting married and wants everything to be perfect with no interruptions. Would you be interested in helping me give her exactly what she gave me?" Every single person I contacted wanted to help after hearing about my wedding disaster. Cousin Jake from Mom's side was thrilled to bring Olivia as his date. Family friend Marcus agreed to escort one of the male actors. Even my shy cousin Bethany got excited about bringing a mysterious theater friend as her +1. The beauty of the plan was its simplicity. Olivia's actors were professionals who could improvise naturally around any situation. They didn't need elaborate scripts or complicated timing, just basic scenarios and the freedom to react authentically to each other's performances. We held strategy sessions over video calls, with Olivia's actors scattered across Atlanta and a few flying in from other cities. The commitment level was incredible. These people were treating this like a legitimate theatrical production. "The key is authenticity," Olivia explained during our final planning call. "We're not trying to sabotage anyone's wedding. We're just sharing our joy at the same time Whitney is sharing hers. If she can't understand why that might be disruptive, well, that's her problem." The wedding was set for March 23rd at the Crystal Ballroom, exactly as over-the-top as Whitney had promised. She'd hired a wedding designer who specialized in celebrity events, booked a 12-piece chamber orchestra, and even arranged for a vintage Rolls-Royce to transport her and Troy from the church to the reception. My actors were positioned perfectly throughout the guest list, scattered across different tables to maximize impact. Everything was ready. The only question remaining was whether I could actually go through with it. The wedding was as elaborate as Whitney had promised. The ceremony at Grace Cathedral featured 10 bridesmaids in champagne chiffon, a full gospel choir, and actual butterflies released as the couple exited. The reception at the Crystal Ballroom looked like something from a fairy tale, with hanging floral installations, crystal candelabras, and white orchids cascading from every surface. My theater friends were scattered perfectly throughout the room, indistinguishable from regular guests. Olivia sat at table 7 with cousin Jake, looking elegant in an emerald cocktail dress. 2 of her male actors were positioned near the bar with their respective dates, and several other performers occupied strategic spots around the dance floor and near the towering wedding cake. Whitney looked absolutely radiant in her lace ball gown. Little Connor was adorable in his tiny tuxedo. Troy seemed nervous but happy, and the whole event had that magical quality that only comes from months of meticulous planning and a generous budget. For a moment, watching Whitney dance with her father during their special song, I almost felt guilty about what was coming. She looked so happy, so genuinely joyful. Maybe I should just let her have her perfect day. Then I remembered Stephanie standing frozen with her speech cards while Whitney commandeered my wedding reception microphone. I remembered guests passing around collection envelopes for furniture donations during what was supposed to be my celebration. I remembered crying in the bathroom while my family told me to stop being dramatic. At exactly 7 o'clock, during the salad course, Olivia stood up at table 7 and let out a perfectly timed shriek of joy. Her fake boyfriend was on one knee between the arugula salad and the breadbasket, presenting a convincing costume jewelry ring. Yes. Yes, of course. Olivia exclaimed loud enough for half the ballroom to hear. The entire room turned to watch as she threw her arms around her fiancé, both of them beaming with apparent happiness. Whitney's smile froze for just a moment, but she started clapping along with everyone else. She couldn't very well object to someone else's engagement announcement without looking like a complete hypocrite. At 7:15, during the champagne toast, a commotion erupted near the bar. 2 of Olivia's male actors were staging their own proposal, with 4 other performers acting as supportive friends, cheering and taking photos. Half the wedding guests abandoned their seats to witness this second spontaneous engagement. I watched Troy physically place his hand on Whitney's arm as she started to rise from her chair, clearly intending to march over and reclaim attention. Her jaw was clenched, but she was trapped by her own rules about wedding etiquette. By 7:30, when the best man began his speech, 3 more proposals had happened around the ballroom. One by the photo booth, another on the dance floor, and a third near the elaborate dessert display. Whitney's professional photographer was sprinting between moments, trying to capture everything while clearly confused about what was planned versus spontaneous. The chaos was just beginning. Whitney finally snapped when her best man was halfway through his carefully prepared speech. She grabbed the microphone right out of his hands, her composure completely shattered. "Excuse me, everyone," she announced, her voice tight with barely controlled fury. "But this is my wedding." That's when Olivia's friend Amber, positioned at table 9, stood up with perfect timing. Amber was Troy's actual coworker, someone I'd recruited specifically because she'd witnessed Whitney's attention-seeking behavior at office holiday parties. "Oh my God," Amber announced to the room, her hand pressed dramatically to her chest. "I just got a text from my doctor's office. The IVF worked, I'm pregnant with twins." The ballroom exploded into complete chaos. Guests rushed to congratulate Amber while Whitney stood frozen at the microphone, watching her perfect reception dissolve into someone else's celebration. Troy looked utterly confused since he knew Amber had just started dating someone, but the guests didn't know that. More spontaneous proposals started happening during the confusion. Olivia had given each couple specific positions around the ballroom to maximize visibility and impact. The 12-piece chamber orchestra, caught completely off guard, started playing the only romantic song they could think of, "Can't Help Falling in Love." The wedding coordinator was frantically trying to restore order, but it was impossible. Every time she managed to quiet one celebration, another engagement or pregnancy announcement would erupt somewhere else in the room. The grand finale kicked in during the cake-cutting ceremony. 6 more couples got engaged simultaneously around the ballroom, Olivia's carefully choreographed masterpiece. The professional photographer gave up trying to capture Whitney's cake cutting and started documenting what he assumed was some kind of elaborate flash mob entertainment. Whitney threw her bouquet at the ground and stormed out of the ballroom, her fairy tale elegance completely forgotten. Troy chased after her while the fake couples continued celebrating, and the older relatives looked on in bewildered delight. My great-aunt Dorothy grabbed my arm with excitement. "Tessa dear, this is the most creative wedding entertainment I've ever seen. Whitney is so clever to plan all these surprise engagements. How interactive and fun." "So innovative," agreed Uncle Gerald. "Really brings everyone together." Whitney returned 20 minutes later with mascara streaks down her cheeks and her elaborate updo falling apart. She managed to get through the rest of the evening, but the damage was done. Her perfect, uninterrupted wedding had become exactly what she turned my reception into, someone else's show. The best part? She couldn't complain about it without admitting that hijacking other people's special moments was wrong. She was trapped by her own behavior. Olivia's actors disappeared into the night like theatrical ghosts, leaving behind only the memory of their perfect performance. Whitney never figured out that the chaos was orchestrated, though she did hire security for Connor's first birthday party. She also stopped making announcements at family events. Funny how that works. Sometimes the best revenge is just giving someone exactly what they gave you and letting them figure out how it feels from the other side.